The death of Tina Watson while she was on her honeymoon is one of the few cases in the world of true crime that have been as unexplainable and terrible. Tina, who had recently tied the knot and was from Alabama, was on a scuba diving trip in Australia's Great Barrier Reef when her life was sadly cut short by an accident. However, we wouldn't be talking about it if this was just another diving accident. On the contrary, it was a case that was shrouded in mystery and suspicion. When everything happened, Tina was alone with her husband Gabe Watson, who behaved mysteriously and made claims that were inconsistent during the investigation, which caused suspicions to be raised. And to this day, nobody has been able to determine if what happened was just a tragic accident or if there was something darker at play. Prepare yourself to learn about one of the most peculiar true crime stories you have ever heard. In order to get to the bottom of what really took place, let's investigate the unusual circumstances surrounding Tina Watson's death while she was on her honeymoon. Would she have been the victim of a cold-blooded murder, or did she pass away in an untimely manner as a result of an unlucky accident? Come with us as we delve into the murky depths of this peculiar case and start our investigation. 1 week after their wedding, on October 22, 2003, the couple went on a scuba diving expedition. This trip was just 1 week after their wedding, and both newlyweds were very excited about it. However, the truth is that they weren't equally prepared for the destination they have chosen. It turns out that Gabe, who was a very experienced diver, had chosen to go to Australia despite knowing that his new wife couldn't hold her own underwater. During the day the tragedy happened, it was seen that Tina, who was just starting out as a diver, was sinking to the bottom of the ocean, while her husband, who was an experienced one, was climbing to the surface. There is still no explanation for what took place underwater, but this is the official story. Tina allegedly became so frightened that she accidentally took off Gabe's mask, which compelled him to swim to the surface of the water. Other divers, on the other hand, stated that they witnessed Gabe engaging in what appeared to be a bear hug with Tina before she plummeted fast to the ocean floor. So, as you can see, Gabe's version and what other witnesses saw don't seem to match. Now, before we continue examining what happened on that fatal honeymoon trip, let's take a step back. In order to understand everyone's suspicions, we have to talk a bit more about the couple. The truth of the matter is that the newlyweds had a relationship that was not only fairly unconventional, but also one that was not well supported by their friends and family. In point of fact, a significant number of Tina and Gabe Watson's close friends and acquaintances couldn't help but question the genuineness of their love for one another. They noticed a number of occasions that supported the notion that their marriage was more of a matter of convenience than a genuine, passionate connection. As stated in their testimonies, Tina sought security in Gabe after 2 previous relationships had failed to meet her expectations. However, there were indications that raised questions, such as Gabe's proposal on Valentine's Day in 2003 and his decision to plan their honeymoon on his own without consulting anybody else. In particular, when probed explicitly about his feelings for Tina, Gabe's silence conveyed a great deal of information. Suspicions over Gabe's motives were further heightened by the fact that Tina had no prior experience diving. He was a seasoned diver, therefore, it is interesting to think that he would want to spend their honeymoon participating in a diving adventure to the Great Barrier Reef when his wife had never tried that particular sport in a real environment. In spite of the fact that she had insufficient experience, which consisted primarily of pool sessions, and the fact that her professors had cautioned her about her weak skills and dependence on Gabe, they still decided to travel to Australia, something that the husband pushed for. The combination of these elements along with the observations made by their friends and families, paints a rather bleak picture when considered in light of what ultimately transpired. Of course, we will never know if they actually didn't love each other, but we can't help but wonder. But this is not the only thing that makes the situation a bit unusual. In the aftermath of Tina's untimely death, there were some people who observed that Gabe's actions didn't exactly fit with those of a grieving spouse, and although grief can be expressed in a lot of different ways, this added up to the mystery. For example, it was alleged by witnesses that he smiled and played cards with other passengers shortly after Tina's body was recovered, which was an action that seemed out of place given the circumstances. In addition, Gabe's choices that he made shortly after the incident brought into doubt his judgment. He sought medical assistance for a minor ear condition and even requested housing and a refund from the diving company. Most people would have stayed with Tina's body, but instead he went to get medical attention. His behavior at Tina's funeral was also not what you would anticipate from a grieving husband. Gabe removed Tina's wedding ring and earrings, something that seemed a bit callous considering the circumstances. At the end of the day, who knows what was going through his head? But one thing is for sure, the circumstances surrounding Tina's death make us question the official story. All of these factors led Australia's authorities to initiate an investigation. Gabe's comments during the interrogation contained a number of contradictions, which prompted them to dive deeper into the whole story. The authorities in Australia discovered that Tina's diving equipment did not have any failures. However, the autopsy report revealed that there was no air in Tina's tank, which suggests that there may have been some sort of tampering. The very existence of this truth served to arouse even greater suspicion. Not only that, but the findings of the autopsy were also shocking. Tina's neck was covered in bruises, there were traces of blood in her nostrils, and an amount of fluid was present in her lungs. If that was not enough, it was discovered that she had high quantities of narcotics in her system, which added another degree of complication to the investigation. Furthermore, both the acts and reactions that Gabe took after the incident were quite concerning. Gabe appeared to be experiencing a range of emotions during his interrogations with the police, including crying, laughing, and showing signs of shock. His actions, which appeared inconsiderate in light of the terrible tragedy, included requesting reimbursement from the firm that had arranged for them to go on the dive experience and asking for lodging. The most frightening aspect of the situation was a statement that was taped at the mortuary, in which Gabe said, "I didn't mean to hurt Tina." In the unfortunate aftermath of Tina Watson's honeymoon trip, these findings portrayed a dismal image, further muddying the waters and making the situation more complicated. When taken as a whole, these behaviors formed a picture of a man whose reaction to the premature death of his wife was, at the very least, disconcerting. The public's perception of Gabe Watson was widely divided. Some people saw him as a good-hearted individual who was caught up in a tragic circumstance, while others referred to him as a murderer who was responsible for orchestrating the entire tragedy. After all that the authorities learned of the events surrounding Tina's death, court proceedings were held, which poured gasoline on the fire and created a severe rift in public attitude. The argument put forth by Gabe's supporters was that he was a victim of a sad event and that he was unfairly accused of it. Even though his acts after the occurrence were questionable, they argued that they were indicators of sadness and shock as a result of the incident. This is something that could indeed happen, but it wasn't believed by many. Gabe's opponents, on the other hand, regarded him as a murderer with a cold heart. They cited his peculiar behavior in the aftermath of the disaster as evidence of his culpability, as well as his apparent callous disregard for the death of his wife. After the investigation, and when Gabe was first arrested in Australia, he was charged with negligent homicide and received a sentence of 18 months in prison. Following that, he returned to the United States in order to continue his quest for freedom. According to the defense, the negligence of the diving company was the cause of the incident, not Gabe's actions. The prosecution, on the other hand, held a contrary viewpoint and placed considerable emphasis on Gabe's alleged cold and calculated behavior prior to, during, and after the occurrence. After coming back to his home country, Gabe's defense team fought hard to transfer the focus away from him and onto the incompetence of the diving company for the incident. In their argument, they claimed that the business had failed to give Tina an acceptable safety briefing and had not sufficiently verified Tina's diving equipment. They also brought attention to the fact that Tina was given a size of oxygen tank that was lower than what was suggested for her degree of experience, which they argued was a contributing factor to her distress while she was underwater. Gabe's actions during the dive were also brought into prominence by the defense for the first time. They maintained that Gabe had attempted to save Tina, but owing to the high currents, he was unable to do so on numerous occasions. According to what they said, his decision to climb onto the roof and ask for assistance was a desperate attempt on the part of a man to save his wife. The defense team claimed that Gabe was a victim of circumstances and a negligent diving company, despite the fact that the prosecution attempted to portray Gabe as a cold and calculated murderer who had plotted to kill his wife while they were on their honeymoon. The assertions that Gabe had incentives to kill Tina, such as a life insurance payout, were questioned, as they stated that these allegations were not based on any evidence and were merely speculations. All of these claims proved to be successful, and in February 2012, the court ended the lengthy and complicated trial by dismissing the case on the grounds that there was insufficient evidence. Since that time, Watson has maintained a life that is not very public. He remarried in 2013, and he is currently residing in Alabama, completely removed from the media's eye. When compared to the swirl of controversy and suspicion that surrounded him almost 20 years ago, his current life appears to be a striking contrast to that. However, even after a significant amount of time has passed, many people continue to recall the terrifying story of Tina Watson's passing. True crime aficionados all over the world continue to be fascinated by the mystery that surrounds Tina's tragic conclusion, despite the fact that Gabe Watson may have moved on with his life for now. Regardless, the narrative continues to provoke discussion, leaving a haunting sense that when one is looking for love, one must proceed with caution so that they do not find themselves in a situation where they are unable to obtain what they are looking for. In light of the Gabe and Tina Watson case, what are your feelings on the matter? Have you come to the conclusion that justice was carried out, or do you believe that there is more to the tale than what was given in court? Feel free to leave your opinions in the comment box, and together we can continue the conversation. In addition, if you like this story, you should make it a point to read some of our other true crime videos, which contain other chilling stories of love, treachery, and murder. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.